Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar around enabling digital transformation for semiconductor and hardware space. Before we dive into the content, let me cover a few housekeeping items. First, at the bottom of your screen are multiple application engagement tools that you can use. All those engagement tools are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. You can also expand your presentation area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right corner. If you happen to have any audio or video issues, you can find answers in the help widget located at the bottom of your screen. Please note that a copy of today's slide deck and additional help materials are available in the resource list. So please have a look and download everything that you may find useful. Note also that the webinar will be recorded and sent via the email that you registered with. And lastly, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. We will have a short Q&A session at the end where we'll select some coming from the audience. But we are also here to answer you live via the chat, so don't hesitate to reach out. And in case we run out of time or we didn't manage to answer you, we'll make sure to follow up later by email. So now allow me to introduce you quickly to our speakers before we dive into the content. So today the webinar will be co-hosted by 3 subject matter experts from JAMA Software, OpsHub, and Cadence. So we will have Jeremy Johnson, who is VP of Product Management at JAMA Software. He oversees JAMA's product strategy and roadmap, as well as product design and user experience. He has 15 years experience in leading enterprise product management teams. And throughout that time, he has worked with customers in various industries. So Matt Graham is Group Director, vManager Product Engineering. He has been with Cadence for more than 16 years and has held several senior roles within product engineering and business development across the verification space. His expertise lies in product direction, customer engagement, technical marketing, and new product introduction for various high-tech software solutions. And finally, we will also have Aparna Garg, who is a senior product owner at OpsHub. She has been with OpsHub for 12 years and has held several senior roles within product engineering and product management. So after this speaker introduction, I will hand it over to Matt, who will walk you through today's agenda.
Thank you, Marie, and thanks everybody for joining. So today, before we get into the agenda, just to introduce the 3 products from that there are 3 subject matter experts about. First of all, something near and dear to my heart, the Cadence vManager verification management platform, which is a scalable, reliable, and very feature-rich verification planning and management solution from Cadence that sits on top of a number of our verification tools and provides a sort of roll-up capability. And we'll describe in a little more detail in a couple of slides. On the OpsHub side, we'll be looking at the OpsHub Integration Manager that enables enterprises to integrate their best-of-breed tools together that are best suited for the various teams in their various roles and connect those together for integration and collaboration. And then JAMA Connect, which is the leading platform for requirements, risk, and test management to help provide that sort of end-to-end compliance solution. Our agenda today, first we'll look at some of the challenges of the semiconductor and hardware development ecosystem. This is obviously a very fast-paced, highly competitive type of environment, and there's a lot of specific challenges that the integration of the tools I just mentioned can help address and solve. We'll look at how engineers in this space can scale effectively and efficiently, utilizing some of these the tools to address some of the ongoing transformations in that space. And then specific to semiconductor domain, bridging the gap in what has historically been a very siloed development process and bringing together for efficiency, quality, and reliability all of the various tools that I mentioned and giving a really nice integrated development and verification environment. We'll then have a specific use case and demo showing how the 3 tools work in concert, and then look at some key takeaways and as Marie mentioned, some Q&A. Specifically to the semiconductor and hardware ecosystem, there are a developing set of challenges. And of course, there have always been challenges in this area, right? First pass design success is critical for hardware development, just because the tooling costs are so great. Right? We don't want to have to respin hardware. It's not like just releasing more software. It requires expense. But that has been the way of hardware development for some time. In the last several years, we've seen a need creeping into that environment for even stricter compliance, particularly around mission critical domains such as aero and defense, automotive, especially as self-driving and autonomous vehicles come in, and adherence to standards like ISO 26262 presents another layer of requirements and need for management and collaboration on top of an already strict set of sort of design parameters. As I mentioned, this development environment tends to be very siloed in its nature because it is so specialist, right? You have specialist designers, specialist verification engineers to test the designs, specialist post-silicon, specialist layout engineers, and so on and so forth. And all of those silos, while somewhat required because of the speciality of each of those tasks, tends to hinder collaboration, compromise quality, and just impact efficiency and velocity overall. In an area where efficiency and quality is critical, right? We can't have bugs in semiconductors going to automotive, and we need to be able to turn those new cell phones, those new mobile devices as quickly as possible. So turnaround time is just getting compressed, and the requirement for quality is increasing at the same time. All of that sort of siloed nature of the specialities, as well as the need for velocity and quality, really ends up in poor traceability of results in terms of compliance and quality issues creeping in, especially when it comes to doing things like audits for ISO and other similar standards that are becoming the requirement across, again, aero and defense type applications, automotive type applications, and even down into the sort of consumer device applications. And really, traceability is a watchword now in the ecosystem of hardware and semiconductor development. So how does the offering from Cadence, vManager, fit into and help provide a solution to those challenges that I just mentioned? Well, for a number of years now, in fact, vManager has been around for about 15 years, and in that entire time, it's had the key capability of the verification plan. And the verification plan really exists to provide traceability between what is being executed during the testing or verification of your semiconductor hardware design, and what were the goals of that or the requirements of that testing or verification project. Things like testing interfaces, both internal and external to the semiconductor, testing compliance with standards like Ethernet and USB, such as that, things like that, as well as the internal requirements of the device. It must route packets this fast, it must answer phone calls in this manner, whatever it might be. And the verification plan in vManager really allows the user to enter those requirements and then connect them to the real results that are occurring. We ran these tests. These tests were associated with a given requirement. Those tests passed, therefore the requirement is satisfied. And so the vPlan becomes a very natural place, and in fact, the appropriate place to connect the rest of the ecosystem via OpsHub to requirements coming from JAMA Connect, so that we can have traceability across the software development, the hardware development, whatever, the mechanical development, et cetera, ecosystems. And the vManager and the verification plan is really where that hardware verification, that hardware and semiconductor development information enters that ecosystem through the conduit of the verification plan. So let's look a little bit more on what exactly is in that verification plan that vManager provides. And the vPlan is really what we call, or what we refer to in our vManager sort of pitch, if you will, as an executable verification specification or an executable verification contract. And what that means is that there's data incoming to that during the creation, the authoring of that verification plan, not only through connectivity to tools like JAMA, but also from, say, static documents like standards specifications, Ethernet that I mentioned before, USB. Those are standard protocols that have very lengthy standards documents, and there need to be a way to import, kind of gather the data from that and put it in the verification plan. Another input to the verification plan is other verification plans. So if you think about it, a system on a chip is not a single piece of intellectual property. It's built up of many, many different pieces, a USB piece, a central processing piece, a memory management piece, and so on. And each of those pieces can have their own verification plans for the verification at that sort of lower block level, as well as then, sort of conglomerating or aggregating those verification plans into a single sort of system on a chip verification plan. And the vManager vPlan allows that through sort of parameterization and instantiation, and really a flexible set of sort of reuse capabilities for verification plans. And then, of course, just engineers authoring their verification plan, literally writing, typing in, here's a specific requirement, et cetera. And then we have the component of mapping those requirements to items that exist in the actual testing environment. Things like, we have a test. Did it pass or fail? What requirement is that test related to? So there's mapping the test to a particular requirement, and then did that test pass or fail? Those of you familiar with hardware verification know that tests passing and failing is not the only statistic or metric that we track. There's other metrics and statistics such as code coverage, functional coverage, assertion coverage, software coverage, all tracking what scenarios and what stimulus were driven to the specific device under test, and what was the reaction of the device under test, and then what percentage of the device has been exercised during that testing. It's all basically statistics gathering from the testing effort. All that data can be mapped into the verification plan, directed to the specific requirement or multiple requirements that it may satisfy. And of course, this gives us the ability to not only specify a requirement, but then capture whether that requirement was met, was it satisfied? And this is the place where I'll hand over to Jeremy now to talk about those requirements in those higher level requirements or system level requirements in the JAMA world, and how they're going to connect into this hardware verification, hardware development world.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so as Matt mentioned, I'll kind of take it up a level in our field of view here. We'll look at how this fits in a broader ecosystem, how this looks across the product lifecycle, and the core set of tools. And when we think about how to scale this across that broader product development tool chain, one of the key things that we look at is complete transparency. You just saw a good view of the level of depth and capability in vManager. You have that team and those folks working very closely and very tightly and diligently in that tool. You also have other components that may need to be integrated into that process. JAMA Connect being one of those for some of the upstream market requirements, other stakeholder requirements, taking those down a notch, looking at risk management and things like that. Matt also touched on traceability, and I think it's important to reinforce that here as well. Being able to maintain traceability across that product development lifecycle, looking ahead at compliance in many of these industries, certainly in the automotive space, with ISO 26262, as Matt touched on. Many folks in the semiconductor industry are certainly very highly integrated into that market, into the aerospace and defense, and some of those others. And so making sure that traceability and looking forward to compliance is absolutely critical. And bringing that together from separate tools is often very, very challenging, of course. The other piece is the collaboration component. When tools are separate, teams are separate. And so breaking down some of those silos that Matt mentioned is absolutely critical. Adding to efficiency, making sure that the best possible information is available, making sure that decisions can be made quickly on the best possible information, and things like that. And that, of course, all needs to be enabled via a robust integration solution. And in a lot of these areas, this is where JAMA Connect tends to shine. These areas of transparency, enabling collaboration, our ability to Connect's ability to empower stakeholder reviews, both in early stage development of requirements and other leading artifacts that start the product development lifecycle, or in very dedicated compliance-driven final reviews of requirements and test information and risk information, so that those are prepared for compliance efforts. We really drive traceability and things through various tools and roll all of that up into a very tight, easy to navigate, easy to interpret package. And that really covers the complete product life cycle, from the very upstream market requirements, enabling product managers to drive that, engineers to collaborate on requirements and decisions and relationships, to really deliver very compliant, market-driven, and high-quality products. Matt touched on this quite a bit, of course, but bringing in the verification and validation components, making sure that that traceability goes all the way from the detail requirements to upstream market requirements, and those components, the system architecture, all of that very tightly packaged so that you can traverse that information, you can identify risk, you can identify gaps or points of weakness that need attention before a product goes to market. And again, be able to roll that information up, get prepared, and have a compliance-driven product lifecycle, so that organizations, so that product teams aren't doing compliance-driven processes as a late stage endeavor. That those things are thought about, they're covered up front. The information is complete and consistent, so that the products can go to market quickly. There are no gaps at later stage. And that, of course, eliminates a level of risk as well when that information is captured up front prior to products getting closer to market. So in our next section, I'm going to pass it over to Aparna, and she'll take you through a little bit more on the key aspects of the integration, and actually into the demo to show you how all of this works together.
Thanks, Jeremy. Jeremy and Matt shared how organizations can get the best of both worlds by integrating JAMA and vManager. What I would add is to get maximum out of this integration, it is crucial that sync solution being used is hassle-free and seamless. Poorly designed sync solution can become a bottleneck and hinder effective collaboration if it is not reliable, and both the systems, JAMA and vManager, ends up being in different state frequently, or sync is not scalable. It slows down vManager or JAMA as number of projects or users are increasing, or integration can become a bottleneck if it is not functionally rich. It takes only half of the data between the tools. It doesn't sync embedded content like images, or it doesn't support any complex data sync. So all the three aspects, reliability, scalability, and functionality, are important to get maximum out of your integration. Reliability is kind of assurance that vManager and JAMA will end up in a consistent state, irrespective of systems outage or sync outage. Observe ensures no data leakage and guarantees eventual consistency when integrating any two systems. Another key aspect for sync solution is scalability. Scalability is the ability to scale to integrate thousands of projects and millions of data without slowing down end systems, without creating any impact on the end users who are vManager and JAMA users. Are there any full scans performed that will severely slow down the end systems due to excessive API calls being made? Is UI the only option to configure and monitor integrations? These are some aspects of scalability that Observe integration focuses on. Observe integration exposes APIs, REST-based APIs, to configure and monitor integrations at scale, which makes it possible to automate different aspects of integration, especially when it is large-scale deployment. Third aspect for a sync solution is that it is functionally rich to integrate not only basic data like text or lookup fields, but also active content like embedded images, comments, links, history. Also enables customer to first integrate existing requirements between JAMA and vManager with complete history, such that both verification team and business team can start from same page. And so this was the key. These were the key aspects for an effective integration. So what more? You can integrate vManager and JAMA with other tools in ecosystem like GitHub, Perforce, Microfocus tools, TestRail, Jenkins, or any other tool from our portfolio of 50 plus tools, which covers most of industry leading tools. We will move towards demo now. This demo is going to be a little different, and we have curated it from our experience of enabling JAMA vManager integration on multiple customers. In this demo, before going to the regular bi-directional integration, we will first do initial load of requirements from JAMA to vManager. That is, we will first load all the existing JAMA requirements to vManager so that vManager team can start working against live requirements rather than referring an external document. Once initial load is done, verification engineer in vManager will start writing test cases and executes them. Verification results are synced back to JAMA, not only in test cases, but rolled up to parent requirements. The product team gets complete visibility into the verification tests that are written against each requirement and results for each requirement as well. On the basis of verification results, product team reviews the result status, and close the requirement, which is reflected back to vManager. With that, let's begin the demo. Here is the vManager instance, which is being used purely for verification test. The verification team gets a requirement document, an external requirement document, which is published to them by requirement team, and they use that document to write test. So if we go to planning, there are no sections or requirements over here. And if we go to JAMA, here is where all the requirements are defined. So what we will show in the demo is all these requirements will first be integrated to vManager, and after that, the regular integration will start where both the teams can collaborate seamlessly in near to real time. So let's have a quick look on the requirement hierarchy in JAMA. So here, there is at top level, there is interconnect requirement under which there is power estimation. And underneath that, there is full chip use case for power estimation. Let me bring up one requirement to show history, because what we will do in the demo is we will, along with just taking the requirement state that is today, we will also take whole history that is there in JAMA. So in vManager, team can see all the activities that were done in JAMA when the description was updated, when title was updated, when status was updated, and so on. So here is a full chip use case for power estimation. If I click on activities, there are certain activities that the user has done here, like status was moved from approved to in progress. There was certain changes done in description. Before that, status was modified from draft to approved, and then this is the time when the requirement was created initially. So in first phase of the demo, we will trigger the initial load or the first set of integration, which will take the requirements from JAMA to vManager. It may take a minute or two for all the requirements to get integrated. So let's wait for a while. Let's go to vManager to see if the requirements have started coming over here. I'll refresh the view. There are already lots of requirements populated. We have our hierarchy over here, interconnect requirement. Let me refresh it one more time to see if now all the requirements are loaded in vManager. Okay, so here we have complete hierarchy. As we saw in Java, there is interconnect requirement under which there is power estimation, there's full chip use case, and all the other requirements are there as it was, as they were there in Java. Let me bring up one requirement that we saw in Java also. The full chip use case for power estimation. So for this requirement, the description is there as it was there entered in Java. Now, if we open history for this entity, then we can see all the updates that came from Java. So if we look at status on which there were multiple updates, every update that was done in Java is integrated to vManager also. And this is one of the unique feature of observed integration. We also replicate all the history between the tools. So here, initially, the requirement was created in draft status. After that, it was moved from draft to approved, and then from approved to in progress. Similar details are available for any other field also. Now, once the requirements are available in vManager, verification team gets near to real-time visibility into requirements current status, and they will start writing verification test directly against the requirements. We will create a metric port for the full chip use case power estimation. So this is the first test case team, a test case team is creating, and they will map it to some of the actual regression tests. So here we have mapped the APV to UART one stop to stop bits. We'll now go and create one more metric port. So let me pick another child requirement. This one I'll create under the security verification. So this metric port is created. Now, similarly, we will map this metric port also to a regression test. We will select a different test over here and map it. And that's it. Now, these two metric ports will be integrated to Java as the verification items linked to the same requirements as they were linked in vManager. So the requirement team also gets complete visibility into verification tests that are being done against each requirement and as they are drafted, so they can give their input and collaborate live with the verification team. Let's go to Java to see if the test cases are integrated over there. Let me refresh the view. So here we must have a verification item under full chip use case. There is stop bits. And there is one more, the second test case that we added under security verification, that is parity. Now, product team will review the test and they do some changes in the requirement description as there is a gap. We'll modify the description and save it. Now, once the product team has verified the test case, they will come to the test case and mark it in progress to say that this is approved and work can be started. Now the same changes will be replicated to vManager. So the vManager verification team should see the latest requirement and the updated status of test case. We'll go back to vManager to see the updated changes reflected over there. The product team had updated full chip use case for power estimation. If we look at details for full chip use case for power estimation, here it has benchmarks added. And if we go to stop bits, their status should be in progress. Let me scroll down. Here it is. Now looking at the test cases are approved, verification team will basically execute the test case and perform grade analysis. So click on this button over here. This will populate verification results for all the matrix codes and requirements in vManager. And let me resync. Okay, so here verification result is updated for all the matrix codes and requirements. If you see for stop bits, overall average grade is 100. Passed number of passed runs are 6, and similarly, one can see that there is no failed run. The same details will be now synced to JAMA and rolled up to the parent requirement, just like it is shown in vManager over here. Let's go to JAMA. Here we'll refresh it. And to see the verification result, what we'll do is we'll go to parent requirement. And here in this view, one can see results for all the requirements, even at interconnect requirement. The consolidated aggregated result is being shown. So if you look underneath interconnect requirement, there is power estimation and there is full chip use case, which is passed. But then there is thermal security and security verification, which failed. So therefore, the overall status for interconnect requirement is failed, with overall average being aggregated. The requirement team gets complete view and visibility into verification status. Now, so just pretending that the full chip use case for power estimation passed, we will transition it to closed status. This is the final sign off from product team. So looking at the test case status for the full chip use case of power estimation, requirements team come to JAMA and updates the status to done. Let's go to vManager to see that the status is reflected in full chip use case for power estimation. Let me resync it. So if you see over here, status is done. And this marks the closure of the requirement for failed requirements for failed test. Verification team can continue to retest, or there's some fixes may be required. And this is how the integration can enable real-time collaboration. Thanks for watching the demo. I will now hand it over to Jeremy to walk us through key takeaways of this webinar.
Great, thanks, Aparna. So in closing, what we really wanted to make sure comes across in this session, obviously you're seeing a lot of depth and capability in vManager, in JAMA Connect, to really deliver better outcomes for your product development lifecycle. But as you can see, this integration, utilizing Ops Hub Integration Manager, really unlocking the strength of both of these tools, really unlocks enhanced transparency, collaboration, traceability. Again, I can't stress it enough. The ability to break down silos between teams, the ability to break down silos between tools. making sure that those that capability, that ability to collaborate is very, very strong, and that active traceability, that live traceability between these tools. Certainly as discrete tools, they have a lot of value for teams, a lot of value for product development, but having that live traceability, it really unlocks a great deal of capability, much higher efficiency and productivity, better compliance activity, improved verification. When you do those as a continuous process, when they're ingrained in your business process, when they're ingrained in the way your teams collaborate, risk is much, much lower. Efficiency and speed to market is much, much higher. These kinds of things are absolutely critical and Matt touched on it very early in this space, and semiconductor in particular, the time to market, the competitiveness of the market. It's absolutely critical to tie this information critically to make sure there are no gaps in verification, making sure that the traceability to upstream requirements is absolutely tight. This type of combined solution really, really unlocks that type of value, really unlocks that type of pace that organizations can achieve, and really enables customers to deliver high quality products much more efficiently and at a higher quality than they can without or with siloed tools. So with that, we'll enter into our Q&A session, and Marie, I'll pass it over to you to get that started.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for the presentation. So indeed, we have time to answer a few questions that we received in the chat. So let's start now. So first question for our speaker, and this one will be for Matt, I believe. So Matt, do we need to be on specific vManager version to integrate with JAMA?
Yes, you do need to be on a specific version of vManager, version 20.06 or above. Now 20.06 refers to 2020 June release. So obviously it's been out for a little while. It's not it doesn't need to be the super latest and greatest, but it does need to be 20.06 and above.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Jeremy, I have a question for you. Can I do full compliance reporting out of JAMA even though verification results are in vManager?
Yeah, definitely. You absolutely can. That's definitely one of the strengths of JAMA Connect is compliance reporting, is driving that traceability amongst tools. It's certainly very common for our customers to use a different tool for verification and validation management, and certainly vManager is the top one in this space. So typically requirements are passed, and I think Aparna touched on this a little bit. The requirements can be imported into vManager. Verification team associates test cases with requirements, then sync back the verification results into JAMA Connect. So you have that two-way bi-directional sync, you have that complete capability, and then you have that ability to conduct reviews, as I mentioned, and get approved outputs that are then used to generate compliance reporting out of JAMA Connect.
Great, thank you. I have another question for Matt regarding vManager. So is the sync tool need to be installed on every vManager client?
Yeah, good question. No, OpSubs would be installed on its own virtual machine or its own host, and will connect to the vManager server to integrate data. So the Aparna and the OpSub team can give the specifics of what the OpSub requirement is, but it is it's not on a per client. The vManager data is stored in a server, and the integration takes place at the server level.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. So question for you then, Aparna. We have multiple instances of vManager. Can we integrate multiple instances of vManager to a single instance of JAMA?
Yes, that is very much possible. In fact, that is one of the common situation or common requirement we get from multiple customers, because often different teams are using different instances of vManager. So that just OPSUB will consider it as multi-system integration, where each vManager instance is treated as a different system. Although if data is flowing bidirectionally between JAMA and all the vManager instances, then we need to make sure that conflict is set up properly so that the data is consistent across all the vManager instances and JAMA.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeremy, this one will be for you. So can we try the sync in our environment before committing to purchasing the integration software?
Yes, definitely can. So the OPSUB team has options for either zero cost, or in some cases a lower cost proof of concept trial with customer environments. You can, if anybody's interested, probably the best is to email partner@opsub.com. You can certainly contact, if you're already working with JAMA, you can contact your JAMA account manager. If you're already working with Cadence and vManager team, you can certainly talk with your account manager from Cadence as well to explore this further.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I have a question now for Aparna. So this is related to today's demo. So what different approaches does OPSUB have in architecture or admin level capabilities to handle complex or large scale projects?
Interesting question. Let me see what is a simple way to answer this. So architecturally, OPSUB makes use of pagination, smaller time windows, caching to minimize data being fetched and to reduce API calls. At the admin level, there are multiple features in the product to handle large-scale projects, like one can configure or one can integrate multiple projects and multiple item types in the single configuration. There are REST APIs available to configure and monitor integrations, and users can be notified when integration is in error. There are many more such features at the admin level to enable large-scale deployments.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And I think as it's almost time to wrap up, this will be our last question. So Matt, this one will be for you. What companies are using vManager and how many are connected to requirements and how many are using JAMA?
Oh, good question. So I can tell you that 19 of the top 20 semiconductor companies worldwide use vManager in their flow. And I certainly can't tell you every customer of vManager, but I can tell you that ST Micro, Analog Devices, NXP, and Texas Instruments are among the companies that have publicly presented papers at various conferences about using vManager in their flow. Among all the vManager customers, we are seeing a significant increase in the need for connection to requirements, traceability, adherence to standards like ISO 26262 that we mentioned. And we have several now that are working on integrating OPSUB plus vManager into their flow for that requirements connectivity. And by far, the connection or the integration that we get the requested about or asked information about is JAMA. So certainly the topic today, vManager, OPSUB, and JAMA working together is sort of by far the most popular connection and most frequent connection that we're working on from our vManager customers.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It's time to wrap up for us. So thank you again to our speakers and to our audience for your attention and also your participation in the Q&A. Again, if we didn't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up quickly by email in the coming days. At the end of the presentation, you will have a short survey popping up on your desktop. So please share with us your feedback or additional questions, and we will make sure to follow up on this. And as a reminder, the webinar has been recorded and will be sent via the email that you registered with, so you can watch it again or share it with your colleagues. Thank you very much and take care.